welcome to Cultural Cocktail Hour. I'm your host, Letitia Marie Sanchez. Cultural Cocktail Hour takes you behind the scenes in the art world to the latest exhibits, plays, openings, and artists. Today, we're at the Huntington Library, Art Collections, and Botanical Gardens, a more than 200-acre museum in San Marino, California, founded by railroad tycoon Henry Huntington. Today's exhibit on pioneer furniture maker Sam Maloof forms part of Pacific Standard Time, an unprecedented collaboration of more than 60 cultural institutions in Southern California, celebrating the birth of the Los Angeles art scene. People magazine called him the Hemingway of hardwood. American presidents had his chairs. Ray Charles said that when he put his hand on one of Sam Maloof's chairs, he could feel a soul. Who was Sam Maloof? From everyone I've spoken to, Sam Maloof was a humble and generous soul who even refused to call himself an artist. Instead, he called himself a woodworker. We're about to enter a world of collaborative artists in the Pomona Valley, a group of artists who traded their goods with one another. Let's go take a peek. In 1968, Jan Hinkle, principal violist for the Los Angeles Philharmonic, commissioned a double music stand, practice chair, and music cabinet from Maloof. For a violist, the bowing technique causes a musician to lean more profoundly on the less responsive strings. In Maloof's design, the long front legs curve down and forward from a sculpted low backrest. In order to keep the music in place, Maloof fused two racks at an oblique angle joined to a spine with a ledge in front. Maloof's chair facilitated complete freedom of the arm and torso movement. In 1968, Maloof designed a cradle hutch for a New York exhibition, deriving inspiration from the pregnancy of his daughter-in-law, Catherine. Focused on comfort, Maloof observed, "Most cradles are so low that mothers break their backs putting the baby in and taking the baby out. Why not bring the cradle up to the mother?" This watercolor entitled Early Morning Pizzicato was done in 1947 by Sam Maloof's mentor, Millard Sheets. Sheets served as the chairman of the art department at Scripps and introduced Maloof to the vibrant Claremont community of artists. Another member of Maloof's circle was Jean Goodwin Ames, the artist behind this enamel and copper piece from 1950 entitled Star Angel. Ames served as the chair of the art department at Claremont Graduate School in the 1960s. The work of Ames featured in the exhibit illustrates a world filled with angels and sprites and reminds me of the works of Marc Chagall. So today we're speaking with Harold Nelson, curator of American and Decorative Arts at the Huntington, about this incredible exhibit of Sam Maloof. So the first question I had for you was, what is it about the Claremont community that made it a golden age of artists?
Well, I think it's the mix of artists. There were artists working in a whole variety of media, painting, sculpture, ceramics, enamels, fiber, and it was an immensely tolerant community. They were all working side by side, respectful of one another's unique vision. Some were working in an abstract idiom, some were working in a more representational way, some were landscape painters, some were weavers, but they all respected one another as people and as artists. And I think that is part of what made this community so very special and so very unique.
Oh, thank you so much. And that's evidenced in this exhibit, which is a collaboration of so many different artists and works that Maloof collected in his own home as well. I think the house that Sam built is also the house of other artists that were incorporated into his home.
In a way, the house was a celebration of that community. The works that Sam and his wife collected were a way of honoring their friends and gathering them and making them sort of a central part of their lives as well. We've kind of consciously chosen objects for the exhibition that reflect relationships between artists also. So for example, there's a chair that Sam made for the painter Emil Kosa. Right across from that chair, there's a painting by Emil Kosa. So right in the heart of the exhibition, there's this marvelous conversation going on between these two phenomenal artists.
I love that about this exhibit. It's a very lively dialogue between artists as well as being about Sam Maloof himself.
Thank you.
Then another question has to do with Sam Maloof's personality and his tenacity. In an essay in your just wonderfully informative catalog, it described Jonathan Leo Fairbanks, who's a curator in Boston at the Museum of Fine Arts, described meeting Sam at a conference in the 1960s in Niagara Falls. And at that conference, basically those who wanted to do craftsmaking were viewed as hopeless romantics, and they said they would never survive in a world of mass production. How was Sam Maloof able to transcend the pressures of his time and become a full-time woodworker?
Well, all I can say is God bless hopeless romantics, because I think there are enough of us in the world who shared Sam's vision for. I think what's kind of unique about Sam's work was he was an extraordinary designer, but he really didn't want to turn his designs over to someone else to make the objects. The making of the object, the design, the making of the object, and the sharing of the object with another individual that he came to know as a friend through this process was fundamental to what he was about. In fact, many of these same artists referred to themselves as designer-craftsmen. So they were not only on paper designing something, they were making it themselves.
Right.
And I think that's part of Sam's unique vision.
I see, seeing everything to completion, from vision to implementation.
Right. To sharing it with another. In fact, everything that he made was made for a specific client.
I see.
And he talked about how it wasn't about the making of the object, it was about the joy that the user of that end product derived from, and that he himself, Sam, derived that same joy from the sharing of his vision.
And it makes sense with the idea. I've heard so many people say Sam Maloof has soul, and this idea of what you're describing, tailoring something to a client, incorporates that soul of the client, and I think that's very much evident in the works that are here.
Thank you.
And the last question has to do with an essay by Jeremy Adamson in your wonderful catalog, and basically this describes Elizabeth Gordon's view in the 1950s, House Beautiful magazine, that works had to have an individual personality to represent democratic ideals, and those that didn't fell into a form of totalitarianism and dictatorship. How does Sam Maloof's work, in your mind, fit into the concept of a uniquely American identity?
Well, I guess Elizabeth Gordon was the editor, the chief editor at House Beautiful magazine, and Jeremy Adamson, who wrote that essay for our catalog, is going to be speaking here at the Huntington on November 9th. And I think he would be, he's I think going to talk a lot about her role in promoting the work of Southern California artists to a national audience, a national community through House Beautiful magazine. As you mentioned, Sam's use of wood, his almost reveling in the beauty of this natural material, was a way of establishing a oneness with nature and the landscape. And that's been a theme in American art from the very beginning, is man's relationship to the natural environment, to the wilderness initially, and to the landscape, and to the mountains, and to the tree. Actually, his fundamental material. So I think all of that reflects some of the unique values that Sam held.
Thank you, and that explains also why this exhibit is held at the Huntington, which I think is a celebration of nature itself, with your beautiful botanical gardens, and I see an integration between the celebration of nature and the exhibit of Sam Maloof.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed with us today, and I just look forward to seeing more of the exhibit.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for watching Cultural Cocktail Hour. Tune in next time for the latest arts news. Bye.